Well,
everyone's done a fantastic job, and congratulations for everyone's hard work. Tonight, we deserve to celebrate.
And
60 years.
I mentioned streamers and production people and editing people this morning, but I also so appreciate Rick. I could not do what I do without Rick. And I will say more about that tomorrow morning, but Rick has been he's an awesome friend and such a hard worker. And it's great minds coming together. We really work a lot out by working together the way that we do. And Jeff, of course, absolutely. So many
folks who don't
thanks.
know, Rick Morin, who is our technical director, producer for the event out of Boston, whenever you hear about Boston. And then Jeff Bishop, a member of our board, who's the chair of what was the ACB Radio Steering Committee. But now we're moving to the ACB, kind of the Papa Smurf of the ACB Media Network is what I'll start calling.
And our board liaison, I would say, for sure. I mean, I just would not want to do. Our minds are often on the same page, and we work a lot out. And even when we disagree, we get through it. It's just a wonderful team. Wonderful. So
thanks for everybody's help this week. It's been fantastic. Tony. We have our last show in the morning, so tune in tomorrow, 10 o'clock for the last Convention Connect.
That's right.
And so rock and roll, everybody. Have fun.
All right. So should we
enjoy the pizza?
On? All right. Thank you. And oh gosh, if you have dessert or something, enjoy. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, everybody. Right. Enjoy the night. Celebrate.
Yeah, enjoy. I love it.
Go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the ACB 2021 Conference and Convention, Better Together Wherever We Are. We are here tonight to have a wonderful virtual banquet, so I hope everybody has had a chance to get a beautiful meal in front of them, a steak, a beautiful lobster, whatever your favorite meal is for a wonderful ACB banquet. And please, feel free to have that favorite adult beverage and relax and, take a little time to reduce that stress. We've had a really exciting week, and this is the time to kind of just join in fellowship and relax and enjoy a wonderful evening of entertainment. Now I'd like to take just a moment for us to have a moment of reflection, thinking of all those, the angels that we recognized and lost this year, of COVID-19 and the impact that's had on our lives, and maybe a kind and wonderful thought of how life is both challenging and rewarding. So now let's have a moment of reflection. Thank you. And now I'm honored to introduce to you Anthony Corona, one of this year's J.P. Morgan Chase Fellows, a new leader inside of the American Council of the Blind, from Miami, Florida, to sing God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And now I'd like to introduce our head table for this evening. So first, I'd like to introduce our immediate past president, Kim Charlson from Watertown, Massachusetts, and her husband, Brian. Sitting next to them is our new ACB first vice president, Deb Cook Lewis, and her husband, Rick.
So
Next.
hello ACB, I'm here to present the Ned E Freeman Award, and I'm a member of the Board of Publications. There are several nominees for this award this year, and the
Rick,
winner
we're playing
is Nick Giudici. I'm sorry, Nick.
Okay, that was Penny. We're going to be hearing from her in just a second, but I want to go ahead and finish introducing the head table. So we have our second vice president, Ray Campbell from Glen Ellen, Illinois, and his lovely wife, Karen. Good evening, Ray. Good evening, Karen. And then on the other side of the podium, we have our ACB secretary, Denise Colley. And accompanying her is her lifelong friend and the chair of our voting task force for this year, Pat Sheehan from Silver Spring, Maryland. Denise is from Lacey, Washington. Sitting next to Pat and Denise are David and Rhonda Trott. David is our ACB treasurer from Talladega, Alabama. Sitting next to David and Rhonda is our ACB Convention Chair, Janet Dickelman for St. Paul, Minnesota. And accompanying her this evening is Rick Morin, our ACB Media Technical Program Director, and also the gentleman that helped us broadcast this week's activities from Boston Control Center at the Perkins Library. And Rick is from Wortham, Massachusetts. Sitting next to Janet and Rick are our executive director, Eric Bridges, and his lovely wife, Rebecca, from Alexandria, Virginia. And last but not least, because I've got to go home this evening, I'd love to introduce my lovely wife, Leslie Spoon, from Orlando, Florida, chair of the ACB Auction Committee. Whoo, wasn't that a wonderful auction on Tuesday night? We had so much fun, and you believe it raised over $42,000. Thanks to everybody for all their wonderful participation. Want to make a couple of announcements before we move on to hear from Susan Glass. First, I would like to remind everybody that there's been a slight change in the agenda for Friday's general session. So Friday's general session will start at 10:30 and it will run to 2:30. So again, 10:30 to 2:30. We will have at the general session tomorrow a vote related to the special order motion that was motioned and seconded at opening session on Sunday night. Hopefully everybody got to see the information about the special order motion. We will have time for debate as well, debate, discussion, any motions that need to come before the body. That will be happening in general session tomorrow morning. After the debate, we will call the question and we will have a full record election with affiliate roll call vote and all individuals being able to vote on the Vote Now system. So please hold on to your codes for voting with Vote Now, and we look forward to an excellent discussion about expanding our ability to vote remotely at the 2022 convention in Omaha and beyond. Also want to encourage everybody, there's only a few, I mean, we are down to just a couple Braille Forum raffle tickets left for the drawing tonight. So if you haven't got your Braille Forum raffle ticket, it's not too late. You got about an hour and a half. Nancy's got only a couple left, and you can call to buy those raffle tickets at 612-332-3242. Again, that's 612-332-3242. And we're getting close to reaching our goal with the monthly monetary support program. So again, I encourage you, please, if you have it in you, take that time and make a pledge to help the American Council of the Blind for as little as $10 a month. Jean Mann is standing by while she's participating in the banquet, so you can get a hold of her at 202-743-0755. That's 202-743-0755. Or you can email her at askacbmms@gmail.com. Again, that's askacbmms@gmail.com. So that's our special announcements for today. I think it's been a wonderful convention. We're here to celebrate. I am so excited about us being able to have remote voting for the first time. Almost 1,000 votes were registered in our last election. That is just so wonderful. So thank you all. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for working with us this week. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you a colleague and a friend, Susan Glass, the chair of the BADI committee, a subcommittee of the Audio Description Project. BADI stands for Benefits of Audio Description in Education. And each year they host an ADP essay contest. And Susan is here to tell us about it in a little bit and then read the essay from the winning contestant. So here's Susan from Saratoga, California. Susan, welcome.
Oh, Dan, thank you so much. And hasn't this been a fabulous convention? I'm telling you, I mean, I haven't wanted to sleep because there's been just too much good stuff going on. So I am just absolutely thrilled. Good evening, ACB. My name is Susan Glass, and since 2013, it's been my honor and privilege to chair ACB's Audio Description Project, Benefits of Audio Description in Education, BADI Subcommittee. Each year, ACB, ADP, and our partner, the Described and Captioned Media Program, or DCMP, co-sponsor the BADI contest, in which blind and visually impaired young people ages 7 to 21 watch an audio described film of their choice and then write a 300-word evaluation of the film's audio description. They share specific ways in which the audio description enhanced or detracted from their experience with the film. So they get experience as writers, as evaluators, as thinkers, even as critics. Members of the BADI committee read all contest entries and then choose first, second, and third place winners in 4 student age categories. The grand prize winner receives an iPad mini and an invitation to read her essay at either ACB's legislative mid-year meetings or the National Conference and Convention. Now, this year, our winner was not able to do that, so momentarily, I'm going to read his essay to you. But before I tell you who he is, I want to pause a minute and thank this marvelous committee. These individuals give of their intelligence, their passion, their warmth, and their eagerness to nourish young people of the future And they kind of prepare the generation to follow next generation, because when they read these essays, they're very interested to see who the kids are and what they're thinking about. And those kids are growing up participating in our media culture. But, you know, without the hard work of my colleagues on this committee, that joy and that annual process would not be possible. So at this time, I'd like to thank Joel Snyder, Senior Consultant for ACB's Audio Description Project, Jason Stark, CEO of the Described and Captioned Media Program, Scott McCallum, who is Superintendent of the School for the Blind in Washington State, and then our own wonderful ACB members, Sheila Young, Leslie Spoon, Donna Brown, and Margie Donovan. Everybody here, you are just so special to me. It is such an honor to work with you year after year. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This year's grand prize winner is Mr. Bennett Lehmann from Jefferson, Wisconsin. He watched and evaluated a video that is prepared by and narrated by describers from DCMP, and it's called Science, Nations, Virtual Reality, Fires, episode 201. And we on the Beatty team are so proud of Bennett for what he's written here. So here is his essay. Congratulations, Bennett Lehmann. Bennett writes, Science, Nations, Virtual Reality, Fires, episode 201. This episode of Science Nation was about how a university is using virtual reality to show how dangerous wildfires can be. I watched this episode in audio description, and I particularly enjoyed the announcing of names whenever someone was talking. It definitely helped me keep better track of the episode and allowed me to enjoy it more. I also liked that the describer changed to only saying the speaker's last names after they'd been introduced, and I'd gotten to know their voices. I didn't find the description intrusive or interruptive to the contents itself, and found it good. The audio quality of the description itself was also amazing. I didn't hear any static or background noise, and the describers themselves were very professional with an even tone of voice. However, a little more detail on the virtual fires description and how similar it is to the real life example shown before it would have been nice. So there you have Mr. Lehmann's essay. What an interesting young man. I'm sure we're going to hear from him again, and he is our grand prize winner this year. So let's hear it for Bennett Lehmann. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Bennett, and thank you, Susan, for that wonderful reading. And thank you for all you do as the chair of the Batty Contest Subcommittee. Next, we would like to introduce Penny Reeder from Montgomery Village, Maryland. Penny is on the Board of Publications as a BOP director, and she is going to share with us the BOP award recipients for 2021.
So hello, ACB. I'm here to present the Ned E Freeman Award, and I'm a member of the Board of Publications. There were several nominees for this award this year, and the winner is Nick Giudici. I'm sorry, Nick. Yes. Nick and I know each other. And I know Nick's sister too, and they pronounce their names in different ways. So Nick, I want to congratulate you for winning the Freeman Award. The Freeman Award is an award given for excellent writing, which we are celebrating, for an article which appeared in the Braille Forum. And actually, your article appeared in several publications in addition to the Braille Forum. I know it was in Paul's for GDUI News You Can Use, which is the newsletter of GDUI Guide Dog Users Incorporated. And it was also published online so that lots and lots of people, including people who are not blind, read it. And that's a good thing, because what the article did was it explained to people who can see how difficult it was for us during the pandemic not to be able to obtain information with touch, and also to maintain social distance from other people. And you did a great job, and you really allowed a lot of people to be empathetic and to understand where we were coming from. And you allowed many blind people to say, oh, yeah, you get it. So we are delighted to award you with the Freeman Award. It's given only when there's an article that is really deserving, and yours is exceptionally so. So congratulations, Nick. Since we are at a virtual convention, I can't hand you the award, but you will be receiving it in the mail. And thank you so much for writing such a great piece. We appreciate it.
Well, Penny, thank you. And thank you to ACB for your appreciation and recognition of that piece. So it was something that I wrote almost a year ago, I guess. And, a lot of it's still true, but a lot of it, fortunately, is changing. I ended up, when I wrote that, I realized, as you mentioned, like just how much touch is important, and when it's taken away, how challenging it is if you don't see. But yesterday I shook someone's hand, and it was just like, wow, I'm shaking someone's hand. It's just had this funny feel. Like initially I almost took my hand back, and then they kind of grabbed on, and we were just kind of both smiled. And yeah, and I just realized, wow. So yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to when we will meet non-virtually.
Me too. Maybe next summer. So congratulations, Nick. We're really pleased that you won.
Thanks.
I'm Penny Reeder. I'm a member of the ACB Board of Publications, and I am lucky enough to be able to award the Hollis Licket Award to Sally Benjamin, who is the editor of the newsletter from the Florida Council of the Blind. The newsletter is called the White Cane Bulletin. There were several nominations for this award, Sally, and your publication fits all the criteria. Comes out several times a year, and it's excellent. Hollis Licket, this award is named after Hollis Licket, and he was the editor of the Braille Free Press, which was the first publication of ACB. And he understood that in order for an organization to succeed, members have to be informed, and members of the general public have to be informed, so that they know what we do and who we are and why blind people might want to join. And your publication does exactly that for the state of Florida and the Florida affiliate. So I want to congratulate you. I wish I could hand you the award, because it would be nice to be there in person. But this is a virtual convention, so your award is going to be coming in the mail. But congratulations. We're really pleased that your affiliate and your newsletter won. You do a great job.
Well, thank you so much to ACB for this award. I'm actually pretty astounded. Our newsletter is something that I've worked on a couple of times. I didn't do it for a while, and then I did, and then I was off for a while, and now I'm doing it again. And it is very important to me to get news out to people, whether it be blind people, sighted people, whoever might be interested. And I just think it's one of the more important things we do in Florida.
I agree. It's one of the more important things we do in ACB. As a member of the BOP, that's why I'm there. So.
And people, sometimes they don't always read all the articles, but that's their choice. But we try to pick articles that are going to be interesting and informative. And this next issue that's about to come out again has some interesting articles in it also, which I was really glad. But I just so appreciate it. I don't know what else to say. I'm just ecstatic.
Thank you for doing such a great job. And, when I called Sheila Young, who's the president of FCB, to tell her that your newsletter had won, she was so excited. She could hardly even talk. And then she started crying. And so that was really fun. And it was so fun to get connected with you again, too. So thank you for doing such a great job.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Penny, for those wonderful presentations, and congratulations to all of our winners. Next, I would like to introduce Debbie Rozier from Allentown, Pennsylvania, who will be presenting our ACB Award winners for lifetimes of achievement in service for our organization. So here is Debbie, co-chair of our ACB Awards Committee.
Dan, do a little bit of a tap dance. I need about 2 minutes.
Okay. It's so exciting to see the work that Debbie and her co-chair, Deb Trevino, have done this year to pull together these wonderful ACB Award winners. And it's so special to see, really the lifetime commitment when you see the presentations for these individuals this evening. I don't want to break the surprise, but these are the individuals who have really dedicated years of service to our organization. And I really want to encourage people that if you have an individual in your affiliate, in your chapter, that works on your committee, that you believe has demonstrated the characteristics that qualify for one of these national awards, please consider nominating them next year. We've had wonderful nominations this year, but with all the energy inside the American Council of Blind and the wonderful leaders that we have inside this organization, I know there are just so many more valuable and deserving candidates out there. So please take a look at our ACB awards and feel free to, nominate that person. Don't be shy. You don't have to be a perfect literary critic or that type of thing. Just get the words down, get the application turned in, and you can honor a person that has meant so much to our organization. So,
the Affiliate Outreach Award. In 2015, the Friends and Focus chapter of the American Council of the Blind of Ohio began finding used CCTVs, making sure they were in working order and placing the CCTVs with people who needed the equipment. The CCTVs helped people with low vision remain more independent. Over time, the program has expanded across the state of Ohio. To date, there have been more than 60 CCTVs placed. The award reads, the Affiliate Outreach Award presented to the Friends and Focus chapter, Medina, Ohio, for their over 60 collections and distributions of CCTVs to Ohioans with low vision.
Hi, my name is Don Kelman, and I'm with the American Council of Blind, and we have a chapter in Medina, Ohio, and it's called Friends in Focus. So in, I believe it was 2015. Anyway, I'm the president and the treasurer. Okay, so in 2015, I thought it would be a good idea to start a program to collect used CCTVs so we can donate to people at no cost. Okay. So I started this program, and it's really something. We got a whole bunch of them donated. So it's been going on for like 6 years, and we've donated 58 of them out already. So I got one donated to us a couple days ago, and I'm expecting another one today. And so we'll just have to see how it goes. And the more people we can help be independent, the better it is. And I'm really enjoying this chapter, and I'm enjoying the American Council of the Blind. It's a wonderful organization to be a member of. And hopefully years to come, I'll be a longtime member. So, and then plus I ordered a couple of little rubies from Freedom Scientific, and we also donate them to our members. Okay, so with they can keep them for 3 months if they so desire, and then they turn them in, and then somebody else can take it like that. So that's a little program that I started, and we have 2 rubies that we do that with. So it's everything's working out really good. I'm proud of our chapter. I really am.
In February of 2016, Crystal Bridges Museum was contacted by the Arkansas Council of the Blind. There were no programs or materials for people with vision loss. Now, with collaboration with the Arkansas Council of the Blind, there are multisensory tours and programs. The award reads the James R. Olson Distinguished Service Award, presented to Kim Crowell of the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, in recognition of her leadership in making the museum a model of accessibility for all disabilities.
My name is Kim Crowell, and I am the Access and Inclusive Programs Manager at Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas. On behalf of the Crystal Bridges team, we thank you so much for this generous award. In keeping with our mission to welcome all, we constantly work towards creating a more inclusive environment across all aspects of museum work with the help of the members of our Community Access Advisory Committee, which is made up of individuals with and without disabilities who are advocates for inclusion in Northwest Arkansas. We sincerely thank our committee members, Rita Reese-Whiting and Rachel Ames, for nominating us, and for our sponsors, Lorraine Arbus and Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield, for their ongoing support of our programs at the museum. Thank you.
This is a presentation for the Durward K. Mcdaniels Award. The presentation is for the Durward K. Mcdaniels Award. This person is the definition of volunteerism. This person is soft-spoken and makes this world a better place for us all. This person is involved in many different organizations, volunteering in the community for all types of agencies, organizations, nonprofits, and service providers dedicated to raising funds for ACB. He has been the leading salesperson for the ACB Braille Forum Raffle tickets for many years, thus earning the nickname Raffle Man. The Durward K. McDaniels Award is presented to a very deserving person. This evening, I would like to congratulate Alan Peterson. And the plaque reads, the Durward K. McDaniels Ambassador Award, presented to Alan Peterson in recognition of his many years of service to ACB and numerous other community organizations.
This award is such an awesome surprise. I thank ACB for this recognition. I am honored and humbled to receive this recognition, knowing that there are so many people that are deserving of this kind of award. This award is particularly meaningful to me in that it is in memory of Derwent McDaniel. I never had the chance to meet Derwent McDaniel personally, but I am acquainted with his work, having read People of Vision, the History of the American Council of the Blind. I want to thank the selection committee for their consideration of my nomination. And I want to thank Zelda Gebhardt for making that nomination of me. And I am very passionate about the work that I do for the American Council of the Blind and for the work that I do for my state affiliate, North Dakota Association of the Blind. I want to thank my friends and family, my wife, Judy, who we will be observing our 50th wedding anniversary here on July 24th. As the Beatles sang in their song, I get by with a little help from my friends, and I can relate to that song. Actually, I get by with a lot of help from my friends and family. I am looking forward to the banquet speaker this evening, Peter Sagel, the program Wait, Don't Tell Me. It is one of my favorites on National Public Radio. Again, thank you so much, ACB, for this recognition. I appreciate it greatly.
Congratulations to all our winners, and a special shout out to Alan Peterson, friend and colleague. When I joined the board of directors, Alan Peterson was there to guide and mentor me, but he still drinks those IPA beers, which I just don't know if that's my ticket. But Alan, I'll have a 6-pack of it waiting for you in Nebraska with a sleeve of brownies. You can count on it. And Alan Peterson, you are a wonderful, wonderful man, and you have given so much to the American Council of the Blind. Hip, hip, hooray, Alan Peterson. You're the best. And Raffle man, I got to tell you, I just heard a little birdie in my ear, Nancy Becker, who told me there's only one raffle ticket left. So there's only one more chance to win. So the first person that calls the Minnesota office will have a chance to win. Thanks to all the wonderful work of the Raffle man. Yes, Dan? Nancy. Yes.
It has been sold.
Oh, we are sold out of Braille Form raffle tickets. Congratulations to all of our ACB members for participating in the raffle. And Alan, once again, congratulations on receiving the Derwent K. McDaniel Ambassador Award. And congratulations to our other winners. And Debbie, thank you for the wonderful presentation. Now it's time for us to relax. Go get that second adult beverage for Alan Peterson. I know it'll be his favorite IPA. And it's time we are in for a treat, folks. I would like to introduce to you Peter Sagel, host of the NPR Peabody Award-winning radio show, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. It is broadcast on WBEZ from Chicago, Illinois. Peter is also a avid long-distance runner and has written a book, The Incomplete Guide to Running. In that book, Peter highlights his experiences in 2013 when he was a guide for a blind runner at the Boston Marathon and experienced the Boston Marathon bombing. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy a wonderful presentation from our friend and colleague, Peter Sagel. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm here because of my involvement with the blind and visually impaired community, specifically the blind and visually impaired athletic community, which happened, I should say, entirely by accident. It was a twist of fate. I have at this point told the story many times of how I happened to be 100 yards away from the explosion, the bombing at the very end of the Boston Marathon in 2013. That was an interesting thing. I've witnessed 3 historical events in my life. One was the LA riots where I was living at the time. The second was the bombing, but the third was the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner when President Obama made fun of Donald Trump. At any rate, we don't know which of these events caused the most, shall we say, chaos. But what I want to talk about briefly right now is not so much about the bombing, which came at the end of a very interesting day, but how I came to be there. Because, of course, as I have often mentioned when I tell this story, I wasn't there by myself. I was there next to a visually impaired runner named William Greer. And how I happened to be standing next to William Greer after running a marathon with him is, well, sort of why I'm here. In the fall of 2012, I had arrived at a place in my own running career where I really didn't know what to do next. I had become an avid long distance runner and marathoner in the classic midlife crisis way. My joke is that I realized I was about to turn 40 and that meant that I would someday die. And I figured out quite cleverly that if I ran a marathon, which I had never done before, I wouldn't die. It's worked so far. But after spending 5 or 6 years pursuing that goal rather avidly and somewhat successfully for a man my age and with my physique, I was kind of out of motivation. Running is a very solipsistic kind of thing. You do it for yourself. You do it to improve yourself. You do it to lose weight. You do it to keep yourself sane when things are becoming stressful. And that was certainly my case. But does it really help anybody else? I mean, we all have limited time in this earth, and should we only be doing things that benefit ourselves? And I was idly thinking about that. And I stress, I did not go out and search opportunities to be of service. One showed up in my lap when a gentleman named Josh Warren, who at the time was in charge of Team with a Vision for the Massachusetts Association of the Blind and Visually Impaired, just called me out of the blue. He knew I was a long distance runner. I wrote about it for Runner's World, said, "Hey, how'd you like to guide a blind runner at the Boston Marathon this year, 2013? And I'm like, sure. Sounds like fun. It sounded more like fun. It sounded more than fun. It sounded intriguing. It sounded challenging. It sounded like something I had never done before, which of course it was. But it also, as I said, seemed like a chance to be of service. You know, if running for my own sake seemed somewhat pointless at that point, running for somebody else sounded like a pretty great idea. Somebody else was, as I've mentioned, William Greer. William Greer is an amazing guy and one of my heroes. He is about my age, put him in his early to mid 50s now. He is a resident of Austin, Texas, and a native of Texas, who, when he was about 17 years old, was in a terrible accident. I think he was hit by a car while riding a bike and hit the pavement hard at the back of his head and ended up scrambling his visual cortex. So he has that variety of blindness. His eyes work fine, but the visual processing doesn't work so well. And despite that, he had achieved a really remarkable amount in terms of his athletic career. He had run marathons. He's subsequently become a quite an accomplished ultra runner, running 50 to 100 miles at a time. But that was his first Boston. He had qualified in the visually impaired category at a prior marathon, was very excited. For those of you who don't know, the Boston Marathon has a special place in the long distance running community. It is the oldest marathon in America, going back to the late 19th century. It is also one that, because of its relatively limited size, has always, limited the amount of runners who can participate. In order to run Boston, you have to qualify by running a certain time at a prior marathon. So for people like me, people who would never hope to being in any kind of track team or any sort of official competition. We would never hope. The Boston Marathon is kind of like every amateur runner's Olympics. To qualify for Boston, to run a BQ, is a big deal. And William had done it, was going to come to Boston, this sort of central event of the American running calendar, and he wanted to make sure that he didn't run into difficulty or, well, fall over. William, of course, because of his visual limitations, has problems seeing things in the pavement that he might trip over. He also has a problem with crowds. He's afraid of running into people. So my job, as was explained to me by William the day before the marathon, was to keep that from happening. Now, in the course of that day, I met a really amazing group of people, specifically the visually impaired runners and their guides. The runners, of course, came in every variety. There were elite athletes there who expected to win the visually impaired division in the competition that day, to actually go home with the trophy, which is so far beyond my experience at marathons that I was just in awe. In fact, there was one runner there, and I wish I could remember her name because she's quite well known in the community, who was so fast that they couldn't find one person to guide her. There just simply wasn't one athlete, visual athlete they could, a seeing athlete who they could find to run the entire distance with her at her pace. So what they had to do was they had to find a bunch of different guides who would pick her up, run at her pace for the entire marathon for only like 10 kilometers, as much as they could manage, and then hand her off to the next runner. And she actually was so fast, her first guide couldn't keep up with her. And the story is that he gave up after about like 5 of the 6 miles that he was supposed to run with her, that first stage. And he just like collapsed, and she just said, okay. And she just kept running along, yelling, I'm blind, so that people would know to get out of her way until she found her next guide. That's the level of athletes that some of them were. The others were just mooks like me, middle-aged people, young people, older people who had come to Boston to run it, who had the same ambition that I did, that this was an achievement that you could, really look back on and could cap or mark career as an amateur runner. And they, wanted the same things that we did. They wanted to have a good day. They wanted to run a good time, to be able to look back on it and say they did their best. A lot of times people ask me like, well, what are blind people like? And I'm like, well, they're like everybody else, except they have problems seeing. I mean, also, of course, I was exposed that day to an amazing group of people, because these are people who, as hard as marathoning is for people like me, it's even harder for them. And they did not let those obstacles get in their way. They said, okay, I can't see, I want to run a marathon. How can I do it anyway? Many of them had arranged their own guides in their running careers. But of course, on that day, they had come to Team with a Vision, which helped them out. And there were also a lot of people, I should say, who were there not as guides, but were there to raise money by running a marathon for the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, which is a great thing to do. I think that there's a bias in running circles against charity runners because they're perceived as being less, devoted somehow or pure in their motivations than we other runners. And particularly because you see, at Boston, you don't have to qualify. You can promise to raise a certain amount of money and you get a bid. And those of us who qualified can get snooty about it. But that day, and among many other days, I began to realize that the people who were doing it to raise money for good causes like that are really far more heroic than the rest of us spandex warriors. And maybe the best thing about that day, we know what the worst thing was about that day, which was the bombing, but the best thing about that day was spending 4 hours with William running along. I think it's a mistake to ascribe to anybody a particular kind of virtue, either because of or despite of their disability. I think that's condescending, patronizing. So I won't say, wow, I learned that through William Greer that blind people are great. I learned that William Greer is great and that his visual impairment is just another aspect of his personality, no more or less important to who he is than my lack of hair is to me. And so it was a great day because I got to make a lifelong friend. And maybe going back on my word a little bit, I came to admire him not only for his qualities, which are immense and varied, but because, as I said, he had goals. He wanted to be a successful long distance runner for the same reasons I did. He had an additional obstacle, which I got to say, in my case, would have stopped me in my tracks because I'm just not that resilient. But in his case, he was like, all right, I got a problem. I can't see very well. How do I solve that? And he did. I was part of the solution that day. And then we finished and the bombs went off, and that's a whole other story. And because of that experience, I ended up guiding three more times, blind runners, twice at Boston, once in New York. And it's been a really positive experience for me, because it turns out that, yes, running is like a lot of other things, something people do for themselves. And most of my friends are like that. We run, we worry about our fitness, we worry about our health, we worry about our times, we worry about our training. But it turns out there's a whole other universe of athletes, people involved with Team with a Vision in Massachusetts, people involved with the Achilles Track Club, all kinds of people who are there to make sure that the community of people who are visually impaired or have other disabilities are able to participate in this as well. And, you know, I'll finish with this. It's a challenging time sometimes, especially when you read the news all day, which is what my job is. And the problems that we're all facing seem very, very large. They're systemic, maybe because of that insoluble. You know, you look at, say, oh God, global warming, what are we going to do about that? And certainly there are people who are devoting their time to trying to turn those aircraft carriers and keep these disasters, these systemic large problems from getting any worse. But I have found that the things that actually make me feel better personally is to get involved with efforts to help people on an individual basis. It is absolutely true that helping one visually impaired runner complete a marathon is not going to change the world. But what I have found is doing the work like that is really good for the soul. We human beings sometimes forget this in our silos of information, especially this last year when we've all been locked inside. Hopefully that's coming to an end. But we thrive most when we help other people. And when we do that, of those things that help us, the things that help us most, the things that make us feel better, feel connected, feel, I don't know, human, are when we do it individually, one-on-one, when we reach out a hand or take hold of a tether and just help somebody else do what they want to do that day. And that's a lesson that I've carried forward and I try to keep doing, even though it's been a while since I've been able to guide a blind runner. I hope to do it again. So it's a pleasure to help, if that's what I'm doing. I hope I am, by appearing with you guys today.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for those wonderful thoughts. And it reminded me as you spoke that we in the American Council of Blind have partnerships with both Achilles and with America Walks. And we have a kinship there in our community. We're, by definition, folks who are pedestrians. We walk a lot. And I think we have some of the same obstacles as runners and cyclists and other walkers. And so, again, thank you for your service, and we welcome the comments. And next, I want to introduce to you our immediate past president, Kim Charlson from Watertown, Massachusetts, who would like to ask you a question.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I could ask you a question about Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is a show that I have been a fan of, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, for many years. And you have an amazing range of guests on the show over the years, from Martha Stewart to Senator Jeff Flake.
Yes.
And of all those guests, can you recall a time when something they said totally flabbergasted you and they went completely off script, taking the show, in a totally crazy, funny direction that you were just not expecting?
One of the things I like to think about our show, specifically our interviews, is, the people we interview tend to be people who have been interviewed a lot. And if you're interviewed a lot, you tend to sort of fall into the same routines. You answer the same questions. And what I love to do is I love to sort of give them a break. Not just so much our audience, but them. Like, is there something else you want to talk about? So, very early on, for example, we were talking to Madeleine Albright, the former Secretary of State. And instead of asking her about international relations, we asked her about her weightlifting routine, which was somewhat legendary in Washington circles at the time. And I remember asking her if it was true that she could press like 150 pounds with her legs. And she said, yes, it's absolutely great for kicking ass, which is not something I ever expected Madeleine Albright to say. And we've had these adventures. I have to say, maybe it's because of the people we choose, that nothing has ever like completely gone off the rails in a way that we couldn't say, but wonderful things have happened. So here's a lovely example, and it may not be the kind of disaster that makes for a great story, but it's absolutely true. We were interviewing Dick Van Dyke. And one of the nice things about my job is that I get to, and I've been able to interview people who I was very admiring of as a child. That sadly is coming to an end for obvious reasons. But there was a period where I got to interview all these people who I grew up loving, and it turns out they're just as lovely as you would always hope they would be. Dick Van Dyke, obviously one of them. And at one point in the interview, Mo Rocca asked Dick Van Dyke about the lyrics to the theme from the Dick Van Dyke Show. Ba-ba-da, 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 ba-da, 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 bum, bum. And Dick Van Dyke said, yes, there are lyrics, and sang them, which I won't do for you now. And it turns out that is the first time ever that Dick Van Dyke had ever sung the lyrics to the theme of his own TV show. 50 years later, he finally did it, and he did it on our show. And that's the sort of thing that I kind of love. I know everybody wants to say, oh, did everything fall apart? It was crazy and they started swearing. That hasn't happened yet, but we've had an awful lot of fun and sometimes a lot of surprises.
Next, Peter, we're going to hear from Peggy Garrett from Missouri City, Texas, who's the president of ACB of Texas and our retiring chair of our Multicultural Affairs Committee. So, Peggy?
It is an absolute pleasure to have this opportunity to speak with you this morning. A few years ago, a show was recorded here in the Houston area, and my husband and I had the opportunity to be a part of that, and that was a lot of fun.
Well, that's great. Yeah, we loved it going to Houston. It was really fun. Do you remember who our guest was that time?
I honestly don't. It's been quite a few years ago. I just know it was a lot of fun when we attended the show.
Yes, we had a lot of fun eating barbecue and Vietnamese food, as I remember.
Mm-hmm. So, Peter, I know you've done hundreds of shows, and I know some of them there's something that stands out in your mind as maybe a favorite show or a favorite candidate, someone who was there. Share with us one of those moments that was a specific moment or a specific show that's a favorite to you.
Well, it's hard to say because actually, and I say this not so much to brag, but just to kind of marvel at how strange it seems. We've done more than 1,000 shows. We've done at this point something like close to 1,100 radio shows. Mm-hmm. If we're not quite at 1,100, we did our 1,000th in the fall of 2019. So add another 50 or so, and we're getting there. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. And of those shows, I mean, there are so many moments. It's hard to pick one. For example, we did a show at the Millennium Park here in Chicago, this beautiful outdoor venue. And our guest for the show was Patrick Fitzgerald, who had been, and this is now, I guess, history, had been the prosecutor who had prosecuted Scooter Libby for his role in the Valerie Plame scandal. This is a few scandals ago. People may not remember. And what had happened was Mr. Fitzgerald had gotten a conviction of Mr. Libby, and then that conviction or his sentence was commuted by the president. And everybody wanted to interview Patrick Fitzgerald about this, and Patrick Fitzgerald wouldn't talk to anybody but us. So I interviewed this major figure in that day's news in front of something like 10,000 people, with the national media all looking on. I looked out over the audience, which was enormous, of course, at this outdoor venue, a whole row of like television cameras, as if we were actually about to make news. That was pretty crazy. I've gotten to play places like Carnegie Hall. I have performed at Red Rocks, one of the greatest musical venues in the world. I've been at the San Francisco Opera House. It's the Greek Theater in LA. It's every time one of these things happens, every time we get up to go out and do one of these shows at one of these amazing venues, I just can't believe it. I honestly think one of these days I will wake up and it'll all turned out to be a strange dream, and I'll look around and I'll really be like the accountant or tax lawyer I was supposed to have been. But until that happens, I have to say I'm really enjoying it.
Next, Peter, we want to hear a question from Judy Dixon, who's been a longtime member of the American Council of the Blind, and she's celebrating 40 years of service with the National Library of Congress and NLS and the Braille and Talking Book Library, and she's a huge fan. So, Judy?
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, Peter. It's wonderful to have a chance to meet you, even if it's virtually. And living in Arlington, Virginia, as I do, I am near Wolf Trap.
Oh, yeah. Another one of our favorite venues that I never thought I would ever play.
I have seen you there 4 times.
Wow.
And in 2019, it was 2 nights in a row.
Really? You are a fan.
I said to my husband, you might think this is crazy, but I'm really inclined to buy tickets for both nights. He said, go ahead, let's do it. So
as close as I will ever get to a groupie, and I'm very flattered.
It was great. And the nights were so different. So many people have asked me, well, were they similar? No, they were completely different. It was like seeing it 2 different years.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that.
So it's really wonderful. I have a pretty mundane question about the contestants, the people who call in to play the show.
Yes.
Do they get to choose which segment they want to be in?
Here's the funny thing. I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because all these years that we've been doing it, that work has been handled by one of our producers. It's been done for the last decade by Miles Dernbos, who's one of our producers. And among his many duties is to recruit listeners from the show. People call in. We get, I'm not even sure, maybe 50 to 100 calls a week from people who want to play. He and our intern will go through them. They'll select people who sound wonderful and charming, fun to talk to, not crazy. And they'll call them back. And I'm not quite sure. I think they do get to ask their preference. I think the system is we will ask their preference, but we won't necessarily honor it.
That makes sense.
You'd like to play Not My Job at the top of the, you'd like to play Who's Bill? Well, that's filled. What would you think of this? I think that's how it works, but I can't be certain. Because of course, when you hear me talk to them, like, hi, you're on Wait, Don't Tell Me, that's the first I've ever spoken to them. So I have no idea what their preference is. But I can tell you that given the quality of the people who call in, who I do get to talk to, our producers do a heck of a job.
They all sound terrific.
They do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next, Peter, we had a contest. You know, ACB, you got to have a contest. So we had people write in on our leadership and community conversation list and submit questions. And this next question was from our winner who submitted her own personal question for you, Peter. And it's Ann Morrow from Lake Worth, Florida. Yeah, so here's her question. So.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of Wait, Don't Tell Me. Where did the idea for the show come from?
That's a really good question. And I wish I could give you a better answer than the real one. Like something like, well, I invented it. I created my own major at Harvard in quiz show studies. And I came up with the idea. And I started it, doing it in my living room. And they grew a fan base. And no, nothing like that. The story is a little mundane, but successful. I hope so. It has a happy ending. NPR listeners tend to turn the radio on in the morning as of a Monday morning to listen to Morning Edition, and then they listen to Fresh Air, and then they listen to All Things Considered. And they do that Monday through Friday. And then the pattern was they'd wake up on Saturday morning, listen to Car Talk, and then Scott Simon, and then they would go away for the rest of the weekend. And stations around the country were frustrated because they wanted people to keep listening during the weekend, but they could never find the right show to keep them listening. And somebody at NPR came up with the idea, like, well, people don't want more news shows. There's plenty of news on the weekend. Maybe a quiz about the week's news? That was the gestation of the idea. And then they hired Doug Berman, who had been the creator and producer of Car Talk, to come in and oversee it. So Doug Berman, working with NPR, basically built this show in the course, it was during the mid-90s. I think they started the process around 95, 96. They tried it in a bunch of different iterations. And eventually they settled on a model of the show that was in a studio with a host based in the central place and everybody else participating via, well, sort of like we're doing now, remotely. And I was somehow found by this nationwide casting effort to be one of the panelists. I was a writer living in Brooklyn, New York at the time, and I got a call from a friend who knew somebody, and I got sort of swept up and auditioned and was cast as one of the panelists on the very first editions or episodes of the show, which were, and I think I can say in the distance of 23 years, pretty bad. I had a lot of problems, shall we say. And Doug Berman and the other producers at the time decided that the first problem they needed to fix was to change hosts. And I guess they were desperate because they decided to give me a chance. Apparently they thought I was somewhat host-like. And they gave me the job, and I became the host in May of 1998, and I've been doing it ever since.
Do you have a feeling of how long you're gonna keep going?
Well, one of the great things about public radio is that it's very, very hard to have a hit show. It's change comes slowly to public radio, but the good thing is that you basically, it's like the way I put it is like it's like being the Pope. It's a very hard job to get, but a very hard job to lose. And the fact of the matter is, if I could think of a better job, if I could think of a job that allowed me to entertain, be funny, put on shows every week with such an amazing group of people, by which I mean both my colleagues on the staff of Wait Wait and the panelists and the cast, and talk to amazing, interesting artists, politicians, writers, thinkers, engineers, astronauts, scientists, etc. on a weekly basis, I would go do that job. But apparently, this is the only one that allows me to do all those things and get paid for it. So I probably will do this job until they drag me out, either in cuffs or feet first.
Fantastic. Last, Peter, we want to hear from Janet Dickelman, our convention committee chair, and she's gathered a couple of other questions from our members and friends. And Janet, we'd love to hear from some of our other ACB family.
All right. Good evening, Peter. Thanks so much for being here. I have to say that even though there's podcasts available at our house at 1 p.m. in St. Paul, Minnesota, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me is always on NPR Live. And if we miss it, then we have to catch it on Sunday afternoon. So thank you.
One of the fun things about our show is, as you say, even with all these podcasts and everything, people still like to gather around the radio.
Yep.
The tradition. It's like, I don't know, like Fibber McGee and Molly 80 years ago. People like to make it a tradition, especially in families. That makes me happy.
Well, we're doing it here in St. Paul, Minnesota at the Dickelman House. My first question is from Linda Hunt from Albany, New York. And she wants to know, have you ever had any incidents on Wait, Wait involving blind guests, contestants, or imperfect guide dogs in the audience?
I'm sure we've had blind contestants because people call in, and our show, of course, like a lot of radio shows, is very popular with the blind because there's no visual element. I know this for a fact because a lot of people come up to me after the show. I mean, there are a lot of people who are obviously visually impaired, and they often come up to me and they say how much they enjoy the show. And I usually tell them how incredibly handsome I am, which they all believe. I remember the only time it's even been mildly disruptive was when somebody brought a guide horse. We've got our share of guide dogs, which are, very normal. We say, oh, little guide dog. Remember not to pet it, it's a working dog. But we've never had a guide horse, which was really something. And I have never been upstaged the way I was by that miniature horse sitting in the front row. So if there's other people out there who use guide horses, that's great. I envy you. But if you do come to the show, sit in the back, just so people remember to look at us and not your amazing, adorable horse.
I love it. Next question is from Diane Scalzi in St. Clair Shores, Michigan. And Diane wants to know, she's wondering if the panelists write their own stories for the Bluff the Listeners game.
Yes, they do. Our panelists don't know what we're going to ask them. That's sometimes obvious as they flail around for an answer. We tried once years ago, letting them know what we were going to ask them so that they could prepare their very funny answers. And that actually kind of hurt the show. Part of what makes our show good is that it is genuinely spontaneous and mostly improvised. However, the exception to that is, as you apparently intuited, the bluff games, when we ask the panelists to tell 3 stories, one of which is real, and those they do write themselves. What we do is the day before the show is taped, when we, the staff, have selected what story we want to make the centerpiece of that, we let them know. We say, hey, this story is going to be X. This is the real story. Our theme is Y. So write a fake story about that theme. And then they submit them to us. Sometimes we do a light edit, and then they deliver them. So what you're hearing, and that I think is part of the fun for the panelists, is that's an aspect where they get to actually prepare and perform something briefly for the audience, as opposed to the rest of the general chaos.
Right. Now we have a question from Damian Pickering from Austin, Texas. Right. And Damian says, I've been listening to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me since the beginning. The show is by far my favorite way of keeping up with the news. My question is borrowed from another of my favorite podcasts, Make Me Smart, with Kai Rasdale and Molly Wood. The Make Me Smart question is, what is something you thought you knew that you later found out you were wrong about? I'd like to know, based on your experience working with blind people, what is a belief you once held about blindness that later changed as a result of your experience?
That's a good question, and I've addressed it a little bit. When I was growing up, and for most of my adult life, I simply didn't have a lot of contact with blind people, just by coincidence. I mean, it's not like I avoided them. It just, for example, there were no visually impaired students in my high school, for example. We did have, by the way, deaf students. We became our high school had a program for deaf students, which was really interesting, and I got to meet some of them. But be that as it may. So I think, looking back on it, without a lot of personal experience, and obviously nobody in my immediate family, I probably had this image that's more or less created in the media, in which blind people tend to be sort of semi-spiritual. There's this trope and legend and myth of like Tiresias, the blind seer. Blind people can see things, if you will, that sighted people can't. They have vision, they have wisdom, And we can all think of like tropes and cliches like that from popular culture. In addition to the, Mr. Magoo style mockery. And I can't say I bought into that, but I will say again that spending time with visually impaired people and blind people, usually, but not exclusively in the marathon, made me realize that no, they're just people. They're just people who, for whatever reason of accident or birth or illness, lost their sight. And, they're coping with it as best they can. And they're utterly normal in every other respect, except for the fact that they can't see, which means they often can't drive cars and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's like a revelation I don't know if that's like, the sort of thing that, the day I learned that, they're just like the rest of us. But I do think that, and by virtue of this, let me put it this way. I've become friendly with a number of people with various disabilities. And the one thing I know bothers them most of all, and this is true of Eric Manser as well, who is a blind runner who I've guided a couple times, is one of the things that they're most concerned with is prejudgments. People look at a person who is blind or otherwise disabled and thinks that they are, by virtue of their disability or their appearance, whatever it may be, they're stupid or, to use an old word, retarded in some way, or in the other direction, particularly wise or particularly soulful, whatever. No, they're just people who have the same struggles and advantages and disadvantages the rest of us do. Again, I don't know if that's a huge revelation, but I do think that it's the sort of thing that I do think that it's the sort of thing that I know my disabled friends would want everyone else to know, that they're exactly the same as anybody else with a couple of physical difficulties. That's it.
And finally, we hear from Peter Altschul from Columbia, Missouri. And how has your work making current event geeks feel better about themselves influenced your work assisting visually impaired runners?
I've never really thought about it, but there is a kind of parallel between my coming to guide blind runners and my understanding of what I do for a living. And let me see if I can explain that. Excuse me. And in order to explain it, you should know that when I started my career, I was a writer, a playwright specifically, and I had very elaborate ideas of my effect in the world. I was going to speak truth to power. I was going to be one of those august people who had wisdom that everybody else had to pay attention to. And I imagined myself making differences on a large scale in the way that a lot of young, arrogant people do. And instead, as I described, I stumbled into this job, which ended up being my career, and God help me, my legacy. And for a while, early years, I kind of struggled with that. I was like, well, I didn't realize that my career would be making fart jokes on the radio. I thought I'd be telling important truths to the American people through my art. But then I began talking on a regular basis to people who listen to and enjoy our show. Usually after we started doing our show in front of a live audience every week in 2005. So every week we'd stick around and talk to people. So every week I got to talk directly, one-on-one, if briefly, to people who listened to our show. And many of them told me how much it meant to them. And some of them told me specifically that it helped them get through an illness or the death of a loved one or just depression. Sometimes they told me it helped them do really boring tasks that they needed to accomplish, like sanding their boat, And as everybody shared with me the specific positive effect, whatever it may be, on their lives that our silly hour a week did, I began to realize that that's far more important than changing the world through art or becoming famous or God knows wealthy. By writing whatever, a hit thing that becomes very, very popular. The fact that our little radio show actually helped individuals, people I met, people whose hands I shook, get through their lives just a little bit easier, just a little bit. We weren't like changing the world. We weren't steering the ship of state, but we were just making a person's life better for an hour, a week. I'll tell you the best story about that. And then which was kind of is sort of represents what I mean. We got a letter one day, actual letters, I remember, as opposed to an email, from a woman who told us this story, that her partner, another woman, this was, I think, before gay marriage was legally nationwide, had become very, very, very ill with some head trauma, infection, encephalitis, something like that. And it had put her in a coma. And the doctor said to the woman writing us, she said, your partner we've done everything we can for her medically. And so whether or not she recovers from this is really, in a weird way, up to her. She's on the border between life and death. And if you would like her to come back to the side of the living, you should probably give her an incentive. Bring her something that she likes. Bring her something that would make her deep inside her, walled off brain at this moment, want to come back to consciousness. And so the letter writer told us they brought in a radio, or whatever the technology was at that particular moment, and played multiple episodes of her favorite radio show, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And she woke up. And we were, of course, amazingly thrilled and wrote back and were like, oh my God. And it just so happens we were doing a show live at the city where they lived. I can't remember where it was exactly. So we invited them backstage and we met them, and there they were. There's the person who wrote the letter, and there's her partner, and she's healthy and she's great. And it was either the most gratifying possible news of an effect we have on a human life, or the most incredibly elaborate scam to get free tickets to a radio show ever executed. And in either case, I'm very happy with it, because either we actually helped save the life of someone's loved one, or we inspired somebody to go to an extraordinary length to come up with a fake story to get free tickets so they could see our show. Either's good. But really, that's the kind of effect that I am proud of having, not, changing the national conversation, not becoming a celebrity to the extent that I am one, but just like, as I said earlier, in terms of guiding blind people, just helping people one-on-one. It's a good thing, good way to spend your time.
Peter, what a fabulous story. Thank you so much. As you kind of went through the conversation here this evening, it made me think of an area that we're having a pretty active conversation right now within the American Council of Blind. And that's really the use of the word blind in the media, in our public figures, in our political figures. And you're, in a position to be an influencer here. And I know you understand and study language, but we see a lot of people use blind in a way that, it implies simple, or lack of understanding, or lack of maturity, or falling down drunk, or whatever it might be. But it seems like blind's an easy go-to word right now, mostly with a negative connotation to it. So have you observed that? And do you have any thoughts for us on how to change that discourse and have that dialogue with our community and with the media?
That's, I'll say this. It's certainly something I'm aware of because of my friendships with a bunch of blind people and visually impaired people. But one of the things that I think has happened for the better in a time when a lot of things seem to be going negative is more and more people have been speaking up about the way, for lack of a better word, the discourse makes them feel. And people have responded eventually positively. What doesn't seem to work is to say to somebody, you're not allowed to say that. That's offensive. Yep. People get defensive. And they get, no, I can say, people have always said that. What do you mean? Blind has always meant this. Why are you giving me grief about it? I didn't mean anything bad. People tend to be very defensive and reactive when they're told they've done something offensive. What does seem to help is when people themselves speak up and speak out with confidence and with a right to express their feelings about how it makes them feel. When you refer to somebody who's doing something stupid as just being blind, well, that makes blind people feel bad. And if the more people who come out and say that in a personal way, I think based on history, given some of the language that we as a society have put aside. I mean, for example, one of the things I've noticed, is that in baseball, there's been a subtle but small change. We used to have a disabled list. Now we have an injured list. And
that's right.
In response to disabled people saying, hey, you're using that term as like a bad thing. Oh, they're on the disabled list, they can't play. We disabled people can do a lot of things. Maybe you should change that word. And they did. And there's no loss to baseball. Injured is a much better word. But that happened because the disabled community let their feelings known. And I do think that is the way forward. That one of the things that, in just the same way that we human beings don't react well to being told that we have done something wrong, we react better when we're told that something we've done has caused hurt. We don't like that, most of us. I mean, what kind of person enjoys hurting other people or making them miserable or making them sad? So I think that the community, I'm sorry, I keep getting these phone calls. I think the community work that'll be done that way. If just speaking up and saying, when you talk that way, when those terms are used, this is how it makes us feel, people who live with blindness every day. And I imagine, yes, there'll always be pushback, but that's how change happens. Change happens. I mean, we've been coming back to the same theme over and over again without meaning to, which is that the most meaningful interactions that I've had in my life are one-on-one. So once again, to be told, I'm just doing the wrong thing because you can't talk that way anymore, that's one thing. To have a person actually say to me, when you said that, it really hurt me. It's something I deal with all the time, to hear people like you who I admire, say those things. And, I'll give you a specific example. I've become friends via the Achilles, with a guy named John Young, who's a short person, a small person, a little person, I believe, excuse me. And I found out from him that the term midget is really offensive to that community. I didn't know that. I used the word without knowing that it made little people feel bad. So now I don't use it anymore, because I don't worry about, the political correctness issue or being censored. I worry about the fact that my friend John hears me use that word and feels bad. I don't want John to feel bad, so I don't use the word. And I think that's how we're going to make progress, to appeal not so much to people's conscience, but to the fact that nobody wants to be hurtful. I hope.
Thank you so much for your talk with us this evening. It really was absolutely sensational. I thank you so much for taking so much time out of your really busy schedule to be with us this evening. And your points were so poignant, and they really, I think, made us think. And I just can't say enough how much we, the American Council of Blind, appreciate your time with us this evening. It was just a treat. It was wonderful. And we hope we continue this relationship well into the future. So once again, everybody, big round of applause for Peter Sagel from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. Way! We've got to give Peter a big hip, hip, hooray! Thank you so much, Peter. Wow, sensational. And now, we've got to keep the good times rolling. Who would like to win some money? I know I would. And so we have come to that time where it's time to find out who our ACB Braille Forum raffle drawing winners will be for this year. I know Raffle man Alan Peterson sold a lot of tickets in North Dakota, so there may be some winners from that state. But here we go. I'd like to introduce to you our ACB treasurer from Talladega, Alabama, David Trott, and our chief financial officer, Nancy Marks Becker from Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, to conduct tonight's ACB Braille Forum drawing. David and Nancy, take it away.
Hey, you guys, while we're waiting for David to show up, I'll let you know that I have been churning my box all evening long so that we have a good mix of raffle tickets. So if you bought it first, you're not at the bottom. And if you bought it last, you're not at the top. Let me churn a little bit.
And I know we've got David there now. I heard him come
I'm here.
in.
Yes, I am. I'm at a banquet that we're having hot dogs, chips, and dip. I won't go through the drinks. I don't want to get anybody rushing down here. But we got about 35 or 40 people here. So, and they're all excited about ACB's 60th birthday and our upcoming alumni convention this weekend. So,
Okay, are we ready, David?
we are ready.
So the first one I'm going to draw for is the 5,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and which amount is the next amount I'm going to draw for?
1,000.
Okay.
So Nancy, tell us what you're doing with those tickets as you draw them.
I'm writing the dollar amount down that they won.
Okay.
She's looking for my name because I agreed to split with her. That's what.
Last amount, David, is how much?
$500.
When insurance, take this one. Whoops. Take this one out. Okay.
All right, now if you will read those in reverse order: 500, 1,000, and 5,000.
I will. Let me put my headset on so you can hear me better.
Oh, you sound good.
Do I really?
Oh, you sound really good. Yeah.
And I'm not going to. So the $500 winner is Jennifer Holloway from Alameda, California.
All right, congratulations.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. $1,000 winner is Anthony Lewis.
Congratulations, Anthony.
Jennifer Holloway won the 500 and Anthony Lewis won the 1,000.
And now for the moment we have all been waiting for, $5,000.
Oh, where is Anthony Lewis from? Do we know?
Here, let me look. Let me look. It does not say on the ticket.
Okay.
We're selling so fast this afternoon, we didn't have time to write addresses on there. Anthony Lewis, exact same place, Alameda, California.
Wow. Okay.
Amazing.
California's on a hot streak. How about moving that towards Florida here, Nancy?
Well,
Yeah, you can stop right before you get there.
I'm going to tell you that I sold the last ticket tonight to this person.
Oh.
And I think he's going to share it with somebody else in his household, but it's Glenn Mccully in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, congratulations, Glenn.
Yeah.
Congratulations to all three of these winners, but I'd like to say more importantly, thank you to everybody who has donated through the raffle tickets to ACT. It has been phenomenal this year.
It has, and we certainly appreciate everybody. And did we have any tickets at all left, Nancy?
Every single ticket was sold.
Oh, I'm sorry, folks. I won't be able to run a discount ticket today or tomorrow, but maybe next year. Okay, buddy, that was great. And we do thank you for your participation. Dan, I'm going to leave it with you, buddy.
All right. Thank you, David. And thank you, Nancy. And congratulations to our three big winners this evening, all from the West Coast. All right. Congratulations. And next, we are going to welcome our ACB Convention Chair from St. Paul, Minnesota, to share some door prizes. So Janet Dickelman, take it away.
Hello, hello. Now, these are some really good door prizes. None of them are worth $5,000, but they are some really great door prizes that I was asked to hold off for the banquet. So I have done that. And I am going to, the first one I'm going to draw for is $100 from Washington Council of the Blind. And that goes to, oh my goodness. Now I want you to know I have nothing to do with these numbers, but this is one of my affiliate members, Abby Winters from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
All right, Abby.
So she gets $100 from WCB. Thank you, WCB, for that great door prize. Then I have another one, which is, this is a very cool door prize too. This is donated by Ira and by Anthony Corona of Sunday Edition. And it is a set of Aftershok's open move headphones. And these are the bone conducting headphones so that your ears are free, so that you can hear what's going on. The write-up says they're great for calling your favorite visual interpreting service, which of course would be Ira, and or from listening to your favorite ACB radio show, Sunday edition. And these have a 6-hour battery life and also include 60 minutes of IRA free minutes. And the winner of the headphones is Marshall Lawrence from Norman, Oklahoma.
All right. Congratulations, Marsha.
Marshall, you enjoy those headphones.
All right.
Then ACB students donated now I'm not, a techie person, but I know this is a great prize because they sent me a link and it looks really cool, but an Fire 10 tablet. And that goes to Eric Brinkman of White Plains, New York.
All right. Congratulations, Eric.
Thank you. Do you want me to do one more?
I think so. Are we going to have any more chances?
We're going to have a few for tomorrow.
Maybe one more.
I'll do one more, and we'll have some for tomorrow. Okay. Ninette Liggett of Westminster, Maryland, gets a $50 Uber gift certificate donated by Mike and Kathleen Duke.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, so those are our banquet door prize, and thank you to all the donors who supplied these wonderful door prizes.
Well, thank you, Janet. And we are now coming to the close of our banquet. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow, our Friday agenda has been published out, thanks to Janet. We had to do some flexibility as one of our key core values here at the American Council of Blind, and we surely had to be flexible at rearranging our agenda for Friday due to the fact that we are completed our candidate selections, but we still have to vote on the special order motion. So the agenda calls for the meeting to get started tomorrow at 10:30. So we will start at 10:30 and the agenda runs through 2:30. We will have our debate and vote. We'll hear reports from several of our key ACB staff members, as well as have a roundtable discussion with our ACB officers and lead staff members at the end of the day. So we'll be meeting from 10:30 to 2:30 Eastern tomorrow. In addition, of course, tomorrow night at 5:45 Eastern, we'll have the pre-Olympics opening ceremonies broadcast hosted by Kim Charlson and Clark Raffle. And we really look forward to everybody being there and hearing wonderful conversation about the back office goings of putting together audio description for the Olympics. We're going to meet with a Paralympian and a former Olympian. Should be just a wonderful, wonderful event. And then at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, we are going to have the biggest blind and visually impaired low vision community watch party ever. We are going to have people from all over the country and the world tuning in to ACB Media Network to hear full audio description of the opening ceremonies of the 32nd Olympiad. So tomorrow is going to be an action-packed day, but tonight's not over yet. We've got a community event with Cindy Hollis and Mika White. We are going to do karaoke from now to 11 o'clock. So everybody take a deep breath, head over to the karaoke Zoom room, enjoy some singing, some entertainment, some relaxation, and we'll see everybody back tomorrow morning at 10:30 Eastern for our final general session. Good night, everybody. And once again, special thanks to Peter Sagel for just a wonderful speech. Thanks so much. Good night, all.